Welcome to the NitWits, a weekly roundtable discussion on the Penn State Nittany Lions, now in its 23rd season. Our panel features a longtime Penn State media and NitWits tag team, Neil Rudell of the Altoona Mirror and Mark Brennan of Lions 247 with Fight on State. The NitWits are hosted by WTAJ's Jack Washer, and each week we welcome a former Nittany Lion as our special guest analyst. The NitWits are brought to you by Irwin Financial, Raymond James, a firm foundation for your financial future. By Encompass Health, a higher level of care. Encompass Healthcare. Ask for us by name. By Monarch Cleaners, for all your dry cleaning, carpet cleaning, and rug cleaning. By Reed and Solaney Orthodontics, providing friendly, family-focused orthodontic care in Altoona, Bedford, and Huntington. By Allegheny Street Cigar, Blair County's only cigar lounge. By McAleer's Plumbing, specializing in plumbing and heating and air conditioning, serving our community since 1886. By Freedom RV, Freedom RV Rentals, your best vacation ever. By Remax Results Realty Group, committed to a culture of professionalism, productivity, and exceptional service. By Dorman's Jewelry, the answer is always Dorman's. By Star Beverage, no matter what type of weather, we are a convenient drive-through one-stop beer store. By Kogan Electric, lighting the way for you. By Lions 247 with Fight on State, your online home for Penn State football and recruiting coverage. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State Game Day every Friday and Penn State Extra every Monday.
Welcome to Nittany Nation Overtime.
And welcome into Nittany Nation Overtime. I'm Jack Washer, back to my normal spot for this week. Let's meet the panel for this week's show. We got a full one, actually, this week from left to right on your screen. Mark Brennan from FightOnState.com and Lions 24/7. Neil Rudell from the Altoona Mirror and former Penn State great Joe Nastasi, also a state college football coach right now. All right, gentlemen. Penn State 0-5 for the first time in program history. And Joe, you said Penn State would run the table, and technically they are, but I don't think this is what you were going for.
Yeah, you know, just watching this and seeing how the season's unfolded so far. I mean, you know, we're looking at this, and you go back to game one, and you know we've talked about so many times, and you just feel like Indiana has now beat us 5 times. You know, I mean, you get down to the 2-point conversion, they don't get that in. Are we looking at a 4-1 season? And I know, again, we've gone back and forth with this, but you know, this team is just so much lacking a leader on the defense, a leader on the offense, you know, some creativity. You know, there's so many parts of this that you want to sit and critique, and I don't want to be so critical of the program because there's so much more going on than any of us would really understand. And there's a lot of dynamics to the team that are not working well now. But I think my biggest disappointment with what's going on every single week has just been the lack of effort, you know, and the lack of playing to the end. And, you know, I think that there's some pieces that maybe some younger guys could get in there to make the spark because it's so flat and it's been repetitive. I mean, this is 5 straight weeks of the identical situation with the team itself.
You know, Joe, Penn State's been on the other side of that so many times where early in the season they'll escape with a win over an App State or somebody like that. And you're right. I mean, I do think that does take the wind out of the sails, especially in a year like this where you lose once to Indiana and really everything that you wanted to play for was kind of out the window. Having said all that, you know, as I look at this team, the thing that really jumps out to me is the same things happening over and over and over again. Whether it's turnovers, whether it's the defense giving up things early, the offensive line struggling, everything, you know, miscommunication on the sidelines or iffy play calling. When these things are happening every single week, to me, that's a reflection of a team that's not prepared and not really well coached. And I think they've really had trouble dealing with what, you know, Tom Allen at Indiana has done an unbelievable job. This staff and James Franklin have not handled this situation this year well at all.
Yeah, and I think it's when you look at what are the clutch moments of a game. Was Iowa really 24 points better than them when they were winning 31-7? Or is it because Penn State didn't make the 3 or 4 plays they needed to make when they were down 10-7 and they drop an interception on the other side of the field? Or the 2 or 3 third and fourth and ones when they're on the Iowa side of the field and they're down 17-7. They're still in the game. And I think it's those clutch moments, the poise to deliver the right call, starting games. Those are the things, goal line, short yardage offense. Last week it was the red zone. Just when it comes time to win, they don't know how to win.
Yeah, and we're going back to what we were saying earlier. You're talking about last December, an 11-2 knocking on the door of a playoff team to 0-5 right now, and the difference, everybody can come out here and play. They all got scholarship guys. They all got athletes, and the difference between winning and losing at this high level, and it's high stakes. I mean, I think that the disappointment, again, for me, and I keep saying a disappointment, another one, and being a coach myself, I don't like to be overcritical of certain situations, but I struggle with some of the creativity in our offensive play calling. And again, I understand it from personnel, from what you have. I understand that we're not there, so we can't sit there and say you should have done this or that. But if you, and I always refer back to MAC games, turn on a MAC game, they may not have 5-star offensive linemen. They don't have everybody in place they need. However, 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, 4th and short, they'll be creative in order to get a ball in a space. May not always work, but at least they have opportunities because they have to be creative because they don't have the horses just to push you around.
If you didn't have enough football yesterday, you got home and you saw Michigan and Rutgers. And to me, Penn State's going to struggle to win either of those games. You saw more passion, more creativity, more engagement. I think Penn State's going to be an underdog at Rutgers. Think about that. What are the odds before the season that that Rutgers and Maryland would beat Penn State?
Well, before the season, I think Penn State was favored in every game except Ohio State, even at Michigan, and that's really turned on its head. And Joe, I love how you keep saying earlier, this could be like a 4-hour show for us because before the show, we're outside talking about all this, and that's what all Penn State fans are talking about.
Sure.
This is a very tough moment for Penn State football.
All right, so ahead on Nittany Nation Overtime. It was a different week, but we found the same problems. Is it too late to right those wrongs? We'll discuss those more in detail next.
The NitWits are brought to you by Irwin Financial, Raymond James, a firm foundation for your financial future. By Encompass Health, a higher level of care. Encompass Healthcare. Ask for us by name. By Monarch Cleaners, for all your dry cleaning, carpet cleaning, and rug cleaning. By Reed and Solani Orthodontics, providing friendly, family-focused orthodontic care in Altoona, Bedford, and Huntington.
You're watching Nittany Nation Overtime.
And welcome back to the show. Now, yesterday, Penn State really struggled with short yardage situations. You saw in 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, just not able to get any push. And going up against an Iowa team, Neil, I mean, you kind of expect to see that because Iowa is known to be physical, but there was no counterpunch from Penn State whatsoever.
Well, here's what I didn't understand. Okay, Ford was injured early. Kevon Lee has been somewhat of a power back so far. He has mushed for short yardage first downs at Nebraska, key situation. Yesterday he scored early, and he scored the first touchdown. Then they had Keziah Holmes. I'm not sure he was as quick to hit what little of a hole was there, but I thought, where was Lee in this situation?
Well, I was thinking, what game was the coaching staff watching? Because when they decided to go for it on 4th and 2 late in the half, this team had already struggled on 3rd and short and 4th and short. So I get where, James Franklin said he wanted to try to inject some enthusiasm. I understand that. But you also have to understand what your team is capable of. You essentially have a quarterback who's not played a ton of football in clutch situations. And they come up with a play, and Joe, this is another thing we were talking about beforehand. Not only do they go for it on 4th and 2, but they throw a pass that wouldn't be completed in 1,000 years. What were some of the things they might have done there?
Right. Yeah, and I think that was a little bit more what I was referring to. I mean, I think to me that in this game was probably the turning point, I believe, because you watched that and it was a 14-point swing like that, and at that point in time we just have not had the firepower and the offensive line to be able to protect and move teams out of the way, which struggling running the football. But, I watched that, and on the third down, okay, so you think you have something and they blitz into it, okay, but you got a fourth down. Now you got to come up with your best 2-point play you ever had, because it's critical at this point. You have to show it. You have to get it done. And you do the one thing other than take a knee that you can't do and throw it out of bounds. I mean, I struggle with that a little bit, and to me those are situations, whether it's us not having a spring or whatever, but to me, I think you simplify the playbook a little bit, and then you got to get a little creativity in there because we're just not able to move guys out of the way.
I'm just wondering now, the unraveling of this year has opened up a whole nother line of questioning of how much is this setting the program back? I mean, if anybody thinks they're going to be ranked in the top 10 or even 20 next year, you don't have a quarterback in the program. At least to me, it doesn't look like you have that position solved. I think there's the scab has been torn off and it's bleeding, and they need more than a Band-Aid.
Ouch, that's ugly.
I think this so too, Neil. I think that as quick as it went south in a year like this, I think you start off hot next year. I think you start erasing a lot of the wrongs of 2020. And I feel like if they can get a guy signed, an elite quarterback. And look, those guys. I give a lot of credit. Those guys are D1 athletes. They're really good. I mean, it is what it is. But you turn on some of these games. You got elite quarterbacks out there. They're the teams that are knocking on the door or in the playoffs every year.
What are you going to sell him, that he can run 20 times up the middle?
Well, hey, you get a guy. You only need one. One will turn it around. I mean, we got Mike Robinson. Mike was, what a great player he was, but that was so different than what Joe would always put out there. Joe never had running quarterbacks, and there goes Mike that ends up being a running back in the NFL.
Here's something.
I just,
Let me throw this at you, Joe, because you were in the program, what it's like. But at some point, do you have these guys in practice actually play against legit competition, meaning open them up to being hit? And I know that's dangerous, but they clearly can't hold on to the ball. Neither quarterback. The quarterbacks. I mean, at least some element of contact in practice.
Yeah.
So they're used to that when the game starts. I mean, the number of turnovers these guys have had. What are you losing? Are you going to be any worse than 0-5?
Yeah.
If you did that?
And I understand what you're saying. And obviously when I played, it looked way different. The game didn't look like this. You didn't have
practice was different. Yeah.
But to answer your question, normally quarterbacks do not take any kind of shots, and I don't think that's pretty much at any level. So I'm not exactly sure. I haven't really seen how Penn State. I mean, I've seen them practice before, but I don't think that the.
I'm just saying normally you don't have 13, 14
and it's
turnovers
a good point.
from your QB.
I mean, it's
right, but that's
it's a
also
good point.
carrying over to the lack of tackling. Maybe the whole practice philosophy needs to be reevaluated.
No, Neil, you mentioned decision making. This was kind of a small part in the game. After Clifford comes in, he throws that touchdown pass. They get down 31-13. There's like 18 minutes of total time left, and he sends out the extra point squad. I'm like, you're down 18. You kick the extra point, you're only going to be down 17. Still a 3-score game. And I think James Franklin is awesome for the culture. He's a great recruiter, but in game, he just doesn't get it with game management. You see it week after week. Just he can't push the right buttons, and like that probably wouldn't have made a difference.
You thought they should have go for 2 right there?
Yeah, because who knows how many possessions you're going to get. You don't know how good your offense is today. Is Iowa really going to give up, 3 more scores? I mean, I don't think he has a good feel for the game. And you see it week after week. It's not just yesterday. I don't know if you guys noticed that, but. I see stuff on Twitter, not just from fans who are upset, but I see other people who are covering the game. They're just shocked as to some of the decisions that he'll make week in and week out. I mean, I don't know. If
you're right, because they had the extra point blocked.
Right. Exactly. But I said even if he makes that, you're down 17. Like you're down 3 scores and you scored to go down still 3 scores. Like I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things. You make it good for you. You don't. What are you doing? Type thing. And again,
Right.
I understand. I think that's fair. And I think James has come out on several occasions on interviews afterwards and said, "Hey, that's a fair question." And I think he's manned up to those. I don't think that satisfies people other than saying, "Hey, we got to fix it and maybe not get it fixed," but I think that's fair.
The funny thing is, though, is that when they went for the 2-point conversion, they got it.
Right.
Yeah,
Right?
that's
So
true.
when you go back to the 4th and 2, had they run that play, maybe we wouldn't be talking about all this right now.
Depends on what Iowa did defensively, I guess.
Absolutely.
They still came down and cut it to 10 points with 10 minutes to go, and then they failed in the clutch.
Yeah. Right.
So again, when they got to a clutch moment, when it was time to win, or at least get it to a one-score game, they couldn't do it.
All right, coming up next, we've had multiple quarterback changes now during the year, so who gets the nod going forward? We'll discuss all of that next.
The NitWits are brought to you by Allegheny Street Cigar, Blair County's only cigar lounge. By McAleer's Plumbing, specializing in plumbing and heating and air conditioning, serving our community since 1886. By Freedom RV Rentals, your best vacation ever. By Remax Results Realty Group, committed to a culture of professionalism, productivity, and exceptional service.
You're watching Nittany Nation Overtime.
All right, welcome back to the show. Last week when we came on, Will Levis seemed like he was poised to lead Penn State for the rest of the year, and that lasted about 2.5 quarters. Mark, you're James Franklin right now. Who do you go to the rest of the year, or at least next week against Michigan?
I think they have to pick one guy and stick with it and hope that you're able to establish that through these final however many games. I'm not at practice, but I would say based on what we've seen, I would go back to Clifford at this point and see if maybe you could generate some things. The picks he threw in this game weren't great, but they weren't as bad as some of the other stuff that we've seen. But I think in these last 3 regular season games and the crossover game, you have to pick somebody. Unfortunately, the Roberson kid's banged up. It would have been interesting to see if they would have given him a look. But I think it's between these two guys. And at this point, give Clifford credit for coming in. He took being benched in the proper way, came out and produced when he needed to, but then again, the turnovers popped up. But I think I hate to say it, it's the lesser of two evils.
Yeah, I think they need somebody who still has some eligibility left. It's Chad Krell.
Nice.
I'm trying to think of a guy that never really got a chance. Now, you know what? I would give Levis another shot. I don't think he's had a full. I want to see what he can do, because I think you got to think beyond this year as well. I mean, Clifford has had about 13, 14 starts now. He did play well in reserve role. If Levis doesn't do it in the first half, you have Clifford. You know he can move the team, be a leader. I'd like to see a little more from him. And quit running him up the middle every other play, and see if he can.
So the deciding vote: one Clifford, one Levis.
Well, I'll make it easy. But
Thank you, Jeff.
so think about this. Last year, Clifford's 11-2. Okay, but what I'm thinking, and you're looking for something different, some kind of spark. At practice, if it were me, I think I would go and say, listen, we're going to create 2 different package scenarios, and you're both going to play, and just whoever gets a hot hand just keeps on going. I mean, to me, I don't see a real. Some people don't say I don't like the 2-headed quarterback type situation, but where we're at right now, maybe that's exactly what we need.
Yeah,
maybe it is.
The one person who doesn't like that 2-headed quarterback situation is James Franklin.
Right. But
so I don't know if he would do it.
That's right. But again, I mean, you look at it, that's exactly where we're at. I mean, Sean Clifford came in and threw 2 beautiful footballs yesterday in 2 throws and 2 touchdowns. I mean, you look at that and you're thinking your pass game. I don't know. I think they both bring something a little bit different. I think you utilize them both. So there you go.
Yesterday during the game, I said Penn State might have, and I was speaking hyperbole, but I said they might have the best defensive line in the country and still might go 0-9. But you look at the guys like Jason Owe, you got Shaka Toney, and you got, I believe, Dita Isaac, who had one of those sacks yesterday where he just kind of stunted on the guy. But you look at least that unit right there, and I feel like that's a unit you can always count on week in and week out. Maybe don't give them a short field, 2-3 times a game, and maybe see what they can do. But Mark, you've been hyping Isaac all along. We saw it yesterday, and the announcers were really on him too. So, I mean, is that what you've been kind of just expecting to see out of him?
Yeah, that, and I think we finally saw Shaka Toney return to the Shaka Toney that we saw for one series against Indiana. Jason Owe has the talent. I would disagree a little bit, Jack. I don't think they've been necessarily consistent in getting pressure on quarterbacks. And when you're facing the kind of kids that Penn State faced against Maryland, young quarterback, Nebraska, young quarterback, this guy at Iowa has been struggling all year. They finally got some pressure on one of these quarterbacks, and I think you saw what it ended up doing for the entire defense. Listen, we could nitpick about what the defense gave up early in the game, but overall, I think you take that effort and hope that your offense isn't turning it over and leading 24.
Giving them short fields, putting their backs against the wall. I mean, Neil puts out a good article every week that I love to read so much.
You're the person who reads that.
Very honest. I love it. He's very honest in it, and I really enjoy it. I look forward to it every week, but he'll let you know where everybody's at. I mean, but I agree. I mean, I think there's guys out there that are really good on that defense. I think Brandon Smith, once he gets into position, and I don't mean that, I mean the position he should be playing inside, okay? He's going to be an All-American. He's very, very good. And Owe and those guys, I think defensive line, I think they all show signs. It's just, collectively haven't been able to put it together because of the positions they've been put in.
All right, coming up next, one final segment, 2-story programs meeting the Big House next week, and they're both having very forgettable years. So who comes out on top? Prediction time. That's next.
The Nitwits are brought to you by Dorman's Jewelry. The answer is always Dorman's. By Star Beverage. No matter what type of weather, we are a convenient drive-through one-stop beer store. By Kogan Electric. Lighting the way for you. By Lions 247 with Fight on State. Your online home for Penn State football and recruiting coverage. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State Game Day every Friday and Penn State Extra every Monday.
You're watching Nittany Nation Overtime.
And welcome back to the show. All right, let's take a look at our updated to-the-date Nitwit of the Year standings. Neil Rudell getting in the win column as the only person to take Iowa last week. So congratulations, Neil. Michigan.
I'm not accepting the congratulations after that.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly.
That guess got to be mine, right?
No, I believe that was
Tyler Donahue.
Tyler Donahue.
All right, I was going to, okay.
So Penn State opens up as a underdog to Michigan. Michigan barely escaping an upset at Rutgers last night. Neil, what do you got? You're the reigning Nitwit of the week.
Michigan looked like they cared somewhat last night, and they can score. I think the only chance for Penn State to hang in this would be a lower scoring game. So I'm going to say Michigan 26, Penn State 21.
Yeah, I'll go next. Penn State has struggled out at the Big House even when it's had good teams. And I know this Michigan team, is not very good this year. But again, you talked about, they showed some signs against Rutgers. Looks like they've settled in with a quarterback, which Penn State hasn't done. So I will go Michigan 34, Penn State 21.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I was watching that game as well last night. I did see that they put that quarterback in. He did a good job, handled it well. I still see Penn State has got a lot of great players. I know we have some great coaches on that staff. I'm going to go Penn State 38, Michigan 35. In an overtime game.
Wow, nice.
Yeah.
All right, and I'm going Michigan 21, Penn State 20. Like we said last week, you got to show it to me before I pick you again, Penn State. So for Mark, Neil, Joe, I'm Jack. Hopefully we say this every week, but we hope we're celebrating a Penn State win next week. If not, we'll see you back here same time next week.
The NitWits have been brought to you by Irwin Financial, Raymond James, a firm foundation for your financial future. By Encompass Health, a higher level of care. Encompass Healthcare. Ask for us by name. By Monarch Cleaners, for all your dry cleaning, carpet cleaning, and rug cleaning. By Reed and Solaney Orthodontics, providing friendly, family-focused orthodontic care in Altoona, Bedford, and Huntington. By Allegheny Street Cigar, Blair County's only cigar lounge. By McAleer's Plumbing, specializing in plumbing and heating and air conditioning, serving our community since 1886. By Freedom RV, Freedom RV Rentals, your best vacation ever. By Remax Results Realty Group, committed to a culture of professionalism, productivity, and exceptional service. By Dorman's Jewelry, the answer is always Dorman's. By Star Beverage, no matter what type of weather, we are a convenient drive-through one-stop beer store. By Kogan Electric, lighting the way for you. By Lions 247 with Fight on State, your online home for Penn State football and recruiting coverage. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State Game Day every Friday and Penn State Extra every Monday. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.